Hey everybody, I'm Tim and welcome to the Blending Room. You're watching Cigars Daily. Hey, get a lot more out of this video when you join the community on Cigars Daily Plus and when you watch it on Rumble. For this video, I'm holding on to Oliva's La Fermentada Daily Edition. This is a cigar that I got the privilege of working on with Oliva Cigars and is now officially in the Daily Edition catalog, along with actually a surprising number of projects from last year. I felt like I spent all of last year whining and complaining about how long and arduous and slow and logistically complex the cigar making process is, but in reality, we really got a lot accomplished. And now here I am today in January of 2025, and now I find myself in January of 2025, ashes deep in brand new projects. What you're looking at on my table is around 60-ish different cigars, and they represent so many different things going on. Some new Daily Edition projects, some new American Viking projects, some different brands that have reached out and said, hey, can we work together on something? It's a lot of stuff from a lot of different people, and I wanted to take you guys inside this process. You know, premium cigars are about artwork. If they're about anything, they're about that artwork. From the cigar making perspective, everybody who blends and creates premium cigars works so hard to craft blends that are balanced, intricate, complex, and offer an experience to take the aficionado from light all the way to setting the cigar down in the ashtray with some real intrigue. And now I've got a lot of different blenders and cigar makers who have worked on that. And this is truly a very fascinating part of my life in the world of cigars, and also something I really wanted to share with you. So I'll tell you about this, and then I'm going to dive into sort of what's happening here on the table. But this part of the cigar industry is really what drew me to cigars. Before I ever worked in the world of cigars, this was over 10 years ago, I would roll my own cigars, and it was one of my favorite things to do. I was so curious about the different varietals of leaf and what goes into the wrapper and the binder and the filler and how it's done and how do you create good draw and everything like that. And then I spent years doing that myself. I even had my own cigar rolling club, and at the first brick and mortar shop where I worked, once a month I would roll up these terribly rolled cigars, and people would come in and try them and enjoy them. I found, though, that once I finally got into the cigar industry and started doing all of this full time, my love for cigar making suffered dramatically. My first roll in cigars put me so deep into the industry that I didn't get to spend time really like going into the blends and what goes into crafting a brand new cigar. I spent so much time learning the industry of cigars that it really pulled me away from the part of it that I was really passionate about. And then over the last few years, American Viking cigars and most recently the Daily Editions have given me the chance to really dive back into this portion of it, which I love so much, and to complain about it, because that's really what I do the most. I complain about the logistics of these insane projects. Here is the honest to God truth. Blending a cigar is done easiest when one goes to Nicaragua or to Honduras and sit at the blending table with the blender or rolls up the leaves themselves like some of these guys do. That's where it goes the fastest. Otherwise, you end up with what I have here, a lot of samples that have traveled to me for me to test and try. And while I'm going to tell you sort of how that part of it goes, I find that this right here is becoming a bigger and bigger part of my day. The idea of having samples shipped and then trying them at a Cigars Daily HQ, or you're trying them at a brick and mortar shop or in an office somewhere like that, is actually kind of got its silver lining. You see, the cigar world puts a premium on the experience and being there and being in it. The initial blending for American Viking cigars was done in Esteli, Nicaragua. But I do really like this part of the blending side. I find that when I go to a cigar maker, I'm able to get samples sent to me, and I expect to be able to get to try them very much the way that an aficionado would try a cigar the first time they've had it. It's the thing that you don't get when you go down to the factory. Someone rolls a cigar right there, they put the cap on it, they hand it to you, and you smoke it. Now, that is like very romantic way to go about cigars because you get sort of the purest form of the cigar. But what's lacking is a cigar that's rested in a wicking room and spent 45 to 90 days just sort of off-gassing and resting and then going through the mail like pretty much all cigars do. For me, the silver lining of blending this way is that I get to try my cigars the same way anybody else would. Cigars that have gone through every process of preparation and made their way to me. But doing the blending this way does present a very interesting challenge, and that really comes down to each individual project. You see, a good cigar maker knows one thing above all else, and that's what they want. They know what they're looking for. They can clearly define the kind of cigar, the kind of flavor profile, the type of complexity that they're after. You see, if you work in the world of digital stuff, we all work in the world of digital stuff, you'll eventually learn this. If you're into programming or writing code, or you have any kind of like graphic art stuff going on in your company or where you work at all, you'll learn very quickly that people who create programs and graphic art and different stuff like this, they create things exceedingly well when you can very clearly define your project. If you can tell a graphic artist exactly what you want, they can usually give it to you, and the better they are, the better it comes out. And the blending of a cigar is exactly like that. If you can go to a cigar maker with a very clear vision for what you want to do, then it's amazing these cigar blenders can sit down with a pile of leaves and blend together a blend that gives the experience that you imagined up front. It's one of the reasons it's so important to work with factories and with blenders that you know you can trust. And truthfully, a lot of what you see on this table is exactly that. There are cigars here from different factories that are for different projects from people who I have learned through lots of time and experience that I can count on. People I know will do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it. It's the cigar making process is already so logistically crazy that if you don't have reliability, you basically don't have anything at all. But here's just a few things that are on this table. And I'm going to speak in some generalities because I'm keeping some of this behind the veil right now. But right now I've got 2 samples of the Leche Burra with Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Those are later this year. Also some samples on this table that are just some incredibly aged cigars with the yellow cello. I don't know if you can see how dark the cellophane is on this cigar. These ones look like they've been around just forever. But these are projects that have got extra age on them. Yeah, there you go. Now you can see really, really dark stuff. Stuff that would be for like a single run, limited edition, one-time thing. Obviously, aging cigars like this takes forever. There are cigars of every type and variety. Mild Connecticut shade cigars. I've got dark Habano cigars along with, cigars on the floor. I've got cigars with broadleaf wrappers on them and Mexican San Andreas wrappers on them for a variety of different projects. There's just a lot here. And so right now what I want to tell you guys is sort of what this process looks like for me. And in the same way that the cigar making process looks a little different for every cigar maker, the blending and cigar designing process looks a little bit different too, but here's what I kind of go through. I think about the cigar making process basically the same way that I think about the songwriting process, in that, like I said, it's a little different for everybody. When it comes to writing a piece of music, some people sit down with an instrument and they start with what the chords or what the sound is going to be behind the song. Some people sit down with a notepad and they start sketching lyrics. They come up with the music later on. There's a lot of different ways to do it, and each person has their creative process. For me, like I told you, my job is to come out with the clearest idea of what the project's going to be that I can. Step 1 for me is typically envisioning either an image of a cigar, idea, a name, a brand, or a type of blend that I want. When it came to Olivas La Fermentada, the first thing I knew about it is that I wanted something ultra clean, crystal clear flavor notes that were stood out and were easy to pick out. when it came to a cigar like the Diesel Desert Walker, I knew up front what the brand was and that I wanted that cigar to sort of be a marriage between the Vintage series and the Boxer Grail. Like, there's a few different ways to start and go about this. I've got a few projects here on the table, but I'll tell you about at least one. I've mentioned a few times on the channel here the idea of this cigar for American Viking called the Unkillable. For me, this is one where I was able to start super specific on the blend. Something dark and powerful, full strength and full bodied, with spice in the back of the throat, but plenty of pepper on the retrohale. You see, for me, the idea of a bold cigar fills two deep desires that I have, and one of them is that the American Viking catalog doesn't have anything in the really full strength arena, the full like dark cigar power arena. It's got Dama Velada, which is a strong cigar, and it's got Box Press Rebellion, which is a darker cigar, but nothing that really punches like full weight, that heavyweight class. And so I've been working for like a year and a half with my factory and with my blender to craft this cigar right here, which I believe is in fact the new blend for Unkillable. Now, the first part of it is that I didn't have anything in American Viking's catalog that really struck this pose, this very strong dark pose. But also, that's the way that my palate has really shifted and changed. So as I think about the art behind American Viking and like what that brand consists of, this is one thing that I want that I can't get from my own catalog with American Viking. It's a big part of the reason that I go through a project like that. And at the end of the day, what's gonna happen right here is a lot of sitting down and thinking. I will take a notepad and a piece of paper, and if there's like a factory code on the back of a cigar or a band on the cigar with a factory code on it, I'll write that down and then take as many notes as I can about the experience behind that cigar. What is the light up like? How quickly do I consider that flavor profile to take to fully come to life? And what are the aspects of that flavor that really stand out? To me, flavor has a few different aspects. There are flavor characteristics, there's flavor strength, and then there's also flavor notes. To me, flavor characteristics is like spicy, peppery, sweet. Those are like overarching, I guess, like parts of a flavor profile that they don't land specifically as flavor notes to me. Then there's also the overall strength of the cigar, which is basically a mild, medium, bold. It's sort of the three bears. Wherever I want to be, that's how it can't be too light, it can't be too bold. Maybe it's got to be just right, And then there's that flavor profile, and that's one of those areas where I dive in so deep. I'm just writing down all the little notes that I taste, all the little transitions there are. Then the critical thing is to revisit that. Come back to it with a fresh palate. And if there's another sample there, and you certainly want to have more sample because there's one to test, one to rest, then I come back and I go through the cigar again and try to see how much of that experience relies consistent for me. That helps me like move outside the fact that some aspect of the flavor of the first cigar came from what I ate beforehand or what I didn't eat, or the fact that I drank more that day or didn't get enough sleep that night, or whatever it was that influenced my capacity to taste that cigar. It gives me the chance to revisit it and say, oh yeah, this cigar definitely pulls out that very chocolatey note. Oh yeah, it definitely has that back of the throat, like spicy grippingness to it. There's a lot of little nuanced bits about it, but the idea is that by the time I've landed on one, I know that that cigar is the one. And I also typically end up with more than 2 or 3 cigars per blend. I try to put them in the hands of other people whose palates I respect a lot. This is something I love. It's like back when I was doing music, I used to play songs and I'd write just a few bars of a song and then start playing it for people. And if they loved it, I'd finish writing the song. And if they didn't, I would just give up and walk away from a song. Because for me, crafting things that people love has always been a passion and a high value for me. So I'm always looking for people that can like try something and I'm like, hey, you really like strong cigars and I know that you liked this cigar and that cigar and I really want to know what you think of this one. That gives me valuable insight about the quality of a blend that keeps me from just like letting my palate reign over everything that I do. It's a second set of eyes. This is a long process of whittling down from lots of different blends here down to just 1 or 2 for a project or 2 that are ultimately going to be the ones. The world of cigar making is so huge and vast and wide and deep that when it comes to just the process of picking out the blend, it's a world all its very own. And it takes a lot of time and attention to detail. Doing this for myself, for American Viking, for the community of Cigars Daily has given me the opportunity to really learn what challenges cigar makers face when they come into the cigar making world. It's given me so much respect for each and every guy and gal that does the cigar making thing. And I'm curious to hear from you. If you were to create a blend or a brand, what would be your preference? What kind of wrapper would you want it to have? What would be the perfect size of a cigar? Drop a comment and let me know. Use your creative mind. What would you even call it? And of course, get more out of this video when you check it out on the community on Cigars Daily Plus and on Rumble. Thank you all so much for watching. This is Tim signing off for Cigars Daily, and I will see you in the comments.